So there's a lot of things that are different from their culture. And a funny thing about them is they always eat with a fork and a knife, never just a fork like we do. And they hold their fork in their right hand and their knife in their left hand, and they kind of scoop onto their fork and eat it. And that was something I had to get used to, which you'd think just like I could just eat normally. But when I was at houses, they would always comment about it. They'd be like, "Sister, you're eating so weird. Like, use your knife." And I would just feel weird. So I finally like started doing it, and it's actually really useful. Like you don't have to like chase your little peas or rice around the plate, but you can just like scoop it on and eat it, and it's like really simple. So, because like in America, we only really eat with one hand. They do these things called beijinhos when they greet people, and what that means, literally means little kisses. So I probably kissed like hundreds of women in Portugal, and old ladies or little girls or stuff like that, and it's just like not weird there. And what it is like you do like one cheek, and like they touch their face like that, and it's always the same direction. So it's like this cheek and then that cheek, and if you go the opposite direction, it's just like really awkward because they're not expecting it. So it's just like, whoa, but you'll get used to it really fast. And you just have to be careful, otherwise you might like accidentally like brush noses or like kiss on the lips or something, which is super weird. While living in Portugal, everyone lives in little apartments. You'll hardly ever talk to people that live in real houses. I always lived in apartments, and it's kind of funny because the doorbells, there's like a whole plate of doorbells outside each building for each apartment. The streets are all cobbled and the sidewalks are all cobbled. And that just means like these little round rocks that are usually in pretty cool like formations are the sidewalk you walk on, which is really beautiful, but it just like tears your shoes apart. Like I went through like 10 pairs of shoes, and I ended up getting these like giant legs because I was just like walking every day, and I had these huge like muscles in my legs, so that was interesting. But yeah, living in Portugal, a lot of people there's tons of bakeries everywhere. Like every corner has a bakery or like a place where you can get pastries or like a hair cutting place. It is so common. It's like almost hilarious. You wonder, how do these people not lose because of competition because there's so many bakeries? But they just like sell tons of bread, and people there, like Portuguese people are very particular about their bread, and so I'm sure they just sell tons of stuff because every day Portuguese people have to go get their fresh bread for breakfast and stuff like that. We became friends with the baker that lived across the street, and it was the best thing ever because every night he would give us like leftover bread that no one would eat, and we'd go home just like, bread, like this is so good, and like pastries, and it was awesome. So that was fun. A lot of people there aren't super wealthy, and a really cool thing about Portugal is that it's not just Portuguese people that live there, but there's a variety of cultures that go there because of different reasons. There's a lot of people there from like Angola, Africa, because of war. They'll go there to like seek refuge. There's a lot of refugees in Portugal right now because of the situation that's happening in like Syria and stuff. So you'll see, like I met people from Pakistan. I met people from like Cape Verde, you would call it in English, I think. But it's this tiny little African islands, and people there are just like super poor, but they're so happy. And like, I love African people. They're so cool. They just like have this coolness, and they're so nice, and like they make really cool different foods. And I also met a lot of Brazilians. They go there for job opportunities, or some of them said like to leave the violence of Brazil or stuff like that. The traditional like classic Portuguese meal, it's called bacalhau. And what it is it's codfish. They eat a lot of fish there. And what it is in the store, every store you'll go in, and at the back of the store usually, they have this place where they have all these codfish, and they're like dried and salted. So they're like these dried fish, and what the members will do is they'll take it and they'll go home and they'll soak it in water to get all the salt out. Like the salt is a means of preserving it, so you don't have to refrigerate it. And then they take it home, they take all the salt out, and then they usually cook it with like potatoes or olives or rice or something. And it was actually really good. Like, I had a lot of companions that were like, I don't know about fish. Like, I'm not a huge fan. And then it was, like, pretty good. It's not like a standard fish. They, like, mix it with other stuff. So that was really good. But that's, like, you'll definitely eat that, like, a ton. What else? I got to eat a lot of food, like Brazilian food, which is so good. They cook their meats and their rice and their beans. It's always, like, meat, rice, and beans. And it's so good. And they, like, know how to use their spices, and it's just, like, it was super delicious. Some of the crazy foods I ate. One time I ate this African dish that was, like, it was supposed to be, like, a bunch of different animals of the sea kind of mixed together, sort of like shrimp, but they had the shells on, and, like, clams and oysters. And it was all kind of mixed in one huge pot. That was kind of crazy. I had a companion who ate something with, like, a chicken foot in it, but you didn't eat the chicken foot. It was just, like, in the soup. So she was like, why is there a chicken foot? But that's funny. I ate, what else? Oh, yeah, the pastries there, like I already said, they're to die for. Like, the pastries are so good. And it's just, like, a donut, but, like, super classy. Like, a classy donut, and it's like, dang, this is so good. You know what I mean? The bread is so good. You can buy little rolls that are delicious, like pretty big rolls, for 10 cents. And so, like, if we were ever on the run or anything, we could just, like, grab a roll and, like, eat that. You know what I mean? Because bread there is so cheap. So produce and bread in Portugal is so cheap compared to the United States. Like, the cheapest things are bread and fruit, which here it's, like, fruit is, like, really expensive produce, but we could buy tons of fruit for nothing. There's a certain cereal in Portugal called My Time, and it's delicious. It's like granola with chocolate, and it's so good. Like, you can't even believe it's breakfast, but everyone loves that. My Time is cool, like, huge there. They have a lot of special, like, chocolates that United States doesn't have. They have a lot of, like, really delicious cookies, or, oh yeah, they have their milk in boxes, like little cardboard boxes. So that was interesting for me when I first got there. And they don't refrigerate their milk, but it doesn't go bad. I don't know how that happens. They don't refrigerate their eggs either in the grocery. Then you come home and you stick it in the fridge. It's really hard to find baking soda. I think they have baking powder, but not baking soda. Or at least it's really hard to find. So, and if you don't have that, your cookies aren't very good. Like, the chemistry just doesn't really work. So, oh yeah, and then they don't have chocolate chips. So every time we made cookies, we had to, like, chop up a chocolate bar. Learning the language was definitely a process. Everyone just has to accept, like, that when you go there, you're going to have a period of time that you don't know what people are saying. But if you just accept it and, like, I'm learning, or I'm new, and just kind of, like, I'm going to get better, then it's way less stressful. And that's kind of what my attitude was. So Portuguese people, they have a very different accent than Brazilians. Like, for example, Brazilians, they'll say things like if it's a T-I, they'll say chi, or like a D-I, they say G. So, like, I'm trying to think of an example. Like, oh, classic. Brand new missionaries come to Portugal and they say the word. So the word for milk in Portuguese is leite. But all new missionaries come to Portugal saying leite because they learned it in the MTC. They'll be like, oh, I want some leite. And you just look at them like, it's not leite, it's late. You know what I mean? But it's fine. It's just kind of cute. But if you do speak a Brazilian accent, people will understand you. Like, there's tons of Brazilians there. Like, it's not that different. It's just the difference between, like, an English accent and an American accent. And Portuguese is, like, in Portugal is, like, the British accent of Portuguese. So it's a little bit more formal, and we use, like, for example, in Brazil, they say você for you. Like, oh, você will do something. You know what I mean? But in Portugal, you always say tu. Like, tu is for you. Kind of similar in Spanish. So that was interesting. Like, a lot of new missionaries came saying você, and they had to learn to say tu. So that was interesting. I would say I was fluent. Like, I understood exactly what was going on by the time I was, like, honestly, in, like, my third transfer, maybe even a little later. No, my third transfer or fourth transfer was when it was like, okay, I feel good. But like the first 2 transfers is honestly a struggle. But it's just like everyone goes through it and everyone can relate. So you're going to serve, if you go to Portugal, you'll probably serve with foreign missionaries because it's very rare to have missionaries from Portugal, like a Portuguese missionary, and all the missionaries there dream of serving with a Portuguese person because your Portuguese would get so much better. But I served with 2 Brazilian sisters, and so that was interesting because I had to learn more about their culture and how they communicate and like their funny little sayings because Brazilian, I feel like Brazil has a lot more like slang, not slang like, but they like have fun with the language and kind of like throw out words and it's kind of just like whatever, you know. But Portuguese people, it's very like you speak right, you speak correctly.